It's a topic that's been absolutely everywhere, and frankly, it's easy to get lost in all the noise. So in this explainer, we're going to cut right through it. We'll show you what these files actually are, the incredible battle it took to make them public, and what they really tell us about the hidden networks of power that, shape our world. So let's just dive right in. When you hear the words Epstein files, you probably think of a simple, maybe infamous list of names. But the reality? It's so much bigger than that. What we're really talking about is a massive collection of documents that exposes not just what individuals did, but how the institutions and legal systems around them failed again and again, allowing this to go on for so long. And to get a sense of the sheer scale of this whole thing, you have to start with this number, 3.5 million. Now, that is not a list of names. That's the number of pages we're talking about. Pages of testimony, of hard evidence, of internal government communications. It is a truly massive, unprecedented archive of secrets. So what are these files really? It's so important to see them as more than just a pile of documents. They're a window into a global network for sure, but maybe more importantly, they're a chronicle of how our legal system repeatedly struggled and, let's be honest, often failed to hold powerful people accountable. Okay, so here's the official breakdown of where they came from. The files really flow from two main sources: civil lawsuits filed by victims and records from federal investigations. But the key thing to get here is that their release was not some voluntary act of transparency by the government. Oh no. This stuff was forced into the open through years and years of tough legal battles, mostly driven by one lawsuit from a victim named Virginia Giuffre. So, how did all these secrets finally see the light of day? Well, it wasn't some single dramatic leak or one big decision. Nope. This was a grinding, decade-long legal and political fight that literally started with one woman's lawsuit and just kept escalating until it became a full-blown national reckoning. This timeline really shows you how it all played out. The big catalyst was back in 2015, with that defamation lawsuit from Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell. That case unearthed a mountain of evidence. For years after, news outlets and lawyers fought to get those documents unsealed. We saw the first trickle in 2019, but the dam really broke in early 2024. That's when Judge Loretta Preska ordered the release of documents naming over 150 associates, and that just opened the floodgates for everything else. And once these files were out in the open, wow, the fallout was swift, and it was global. These revelations triggered resignations, they sparked brand new criminal investigations, and they forced this huge moment of reckoning for powerful people and institutions way beyond just the US. I mean, just take a look at this table. This gives you a snapshot of the very real-world consequences. In the UK, you have major figures like Peter Mandacilla and Prince Andrew suddenly facing new investigations, losing their titles. Over in Norway, a former prime minister gets charged with corruption. See, this wasn't just abstract information. It had immediate, career-ending, and legal repercussions. Of course, back here in the US, the files also detailed associations with two former presidents, which, as you can imagine, drew some pretty intense focus. For Bill Clinton, the documents show a bunch of flights on Epstein's plane and him being at social events. For Donald Trump, the connection goes back to an earlier period and seems to have ended over a business deal. Now, and this is absolutely crucial to state, based strictly on the information inside these release documents, neither man is accused of any criminal wrongdoing. The files also pulled the curtain back on how this whole operation was structured. And make no mistake, this was far from a one-man show. The documents point to key enablers, everyone from lawyers and accountants to recruiters, who were essential to the network. We also see his playbook: build financial power by managing money for the super rich, and then use that money to build a network in academia, basically laundering his reputation through big donations to elite universities. His massive estate was even set up to reward many of the people in this inner circle. But the impact went way beyond just individual reputations. The release of these files pretty much triggered a massive institutional crisis here in the US. It exposed these deep cracks in our political system and sparked this unprecedented power struggle between Congress and the executive branch. And that clash led to a historic standoff. For instance, when Congress subpoenaed high-profile individuals to testify, there was major legal resistance. This led to threats of holding them in contempt of Congress, which is a very, very serious charge that could lead to fines or even jail time. It became a constitutional showdown that just shows you how politically explosive this information really was. And the institutional conflict went even deeper. The release raised some really serious questions about the separation of powers.
This quote here from Representative Jamie Raskin, an outrageous abuse of power. It just perfectly captures the anger that a lot of lawmakers felt. They were accusing the Department of Justice of stonewalling and getting in the way of their oversight role, which, is a cornerstone of American democracy.
The way these files were released also created a huge problem. They didn't just drop all at once. They came out in these staggered batches, and they often included raw, totally unverified allegations. This created a perfect storm for misinformation. This data void was immediately filled by online speculation and conspiracy theories, and that had real-world consequences, like that viral feud between Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Kimmel, a huge public fight based on a name just being on a list, with zero context from the actual documents.
So beyond all the shocking headlines, why does any of this really matter? Because the entire Epstein saga, from the horrific crimes to that sweetheart plea deal to the chaotic release of the files, it's all come to symbolize a much deeper crisis, the collapse of public trust in the very institutions that are supposed to protect us. This table, right here, lays out a devastating pattern of institutional failure stretching across decades. You've got the FBI allegedly ignoring victim reports for years. Then you have federal prosecutors giving Epstein that secret, non-prosecution agreement, a deal of a lifetime that totally betrayed his victims. And then the shocking security failures at the Bureau of Prisons on the night he died. Each failure just piled on top of the last, feeding this deep-seated public cynicism. And here is the result of all those failures. The polling on this is just staggering. Even after millions of pages have been released, a massive majority of Americans